Would you look at that? So here's a fun one. G-code arcs. If you add this little section to your printer CFG, it gives you the ability to make G2 and G3 commands, which are essentially just clockwise and counterclockwise circles. But what I've been doing with them is coming up to this little tab here on the front of the plate, and I'll come down in Z and kind of do a little nozzle scrub, little scrub-a-dub. Scrub-a-dub-dub nozzle scrub. So here's how I did it. First step's pretty simple. You add the G-code arcs section to your printer CFG and choose a resolution. The finer the resolution, the more circly the circles. Then I like to add a G-code macro section to my printer CFG. Make sure G-code macro is lowercase. Center of the tab was X150Y3. All right, now for the fun part, we're going to build a macro. So we're going to start with a G90 absolute position. Then we'll do a couple of G1 commands. We're going to raise Z by 10. Then we're going to move over to the tab. I chose X110Y3. Then we'll bring our table up so that it is just below the nozzle. Next up is our G2 command, and that's going to bring along with it a couple of new things, I and J. I is going to be either positive or negative X, and what that means is that your circle is either going to be to the positive side of the point that you've chosen or to the negative side of the point that you've chosen. Same with J, except for in the Y axis. So I'm putting in I radius of 0.5, which will give me a diameter of 1. And then for testing purposes, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that like 7 or 8 times, and I'm going to change the X figure by 1 millimeter in the positive direction. All right, and back to the console for some action. We're going to hit nozzle underscore scrub. All right, focus up. This is where shit gets weird. All right, we're going to try and tidy this up in a nice little bow so we don't have to edit a giant string of G-code every time I want to make a change. Let me just show you a little trick here. So I think the actual term for this is Jinja, but I'm going to go ahead and call them variable macros. All right, we're going to write one up for the scrub height. We want to be able to change our Z height whenever we want, and we're going to go ahead and write one up for loops as well. They are a little bit different. Loops uses whole numbers, whereas Z height uses decimal places. So you're going to have float at the end of the Z, and you're going to have int at the end of loops. Now, let me show you what you can do with this. First thing we're going to do is add scrub Z. It's right here on our line that says Z 0.2. Then we're going to go ahead, go down to our actual coordinate for the tab, and we're going to add a Jinja code before and after it for our loops. All right, then I'm going to copy and paste that a bunch of times, and I'm going to change it by 1 millimeter so that our circles move over by 1 millimeter each loop cycle. And we'll save and restart, and if you did it right, it should, we got an error. Okay, so let's go back, look at our code here. I see it already. We got to get rid of set. Save and restart. Now, if we go over to our console, we can add nozzle scrub. We can set our Z height to whatever we want it to, and we can also set our loops to whatever we want it to. Now, what I'm actually going to do with this, I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it in my start print, end print CFG, and I will set my Z to 0 and my loops to 20. I'm also going to kick on the fans right before for a few seconds, and I'm going to kick them off right afterward. And shablamo.